Hi guys, my name is Danielle Hindley and I am a single mother from Leeds, well a little village just on the outside of Leeds. This is going to be my first video on this topic. I'm doing this video because in 2017 a national newspaper they wrote an article about me which was extremely misleading. It damaged my life and my business in so many ways, but we won't go into all of that on this first video. And the reason that I am doing this video, even though I've won my case about the article itself, I just feel that some awareness needs to be sort of spread with regards to what the national newspapers are basically allowed to do and get away with, and what potentially you might be able to do to help. So in brief, the article about me was branding me as a rogue beautician and a cosmetic cowboy. Both statements completely untrue. I have a home run salon business. You can have a look at it if you like. It's called Dolly's. I have all 5-star reviews. My clients, I like to think they love me as I do them. And I have a nice little setup. I'm certainly not the typical single mum. And I do like to inspire other single mums to be the best version of themselves. So, and be self-sufficient. Wherever possible. That's not to make any judgment on any other single mums that don't work. It's nothing like that. Obviously, I'm just explaining who I am and what I'm about. So yeah, there was an article about me. It wasn't true. It was based off the lies and inaccuracies of a past client. I did have proof of all that being lies, so that's that. But today's video is just about one part of this story, and it's about when a journalist from a national newspaper came into my home where I live alone with my child, and they had hidden cameras. She had hidden cameras on her person, and she basically videoed myself and my son in our home in pursuit of a story. And as far as I can see, there's nothing that she would have had on that footage that even made up any part of the story that she then put together. One thing I do want to say is this is my story. It's my version of events. It's my truth. I am not going to lie about anything in this, but I want to make very clear that I don't want anyone to find this journalist on social media or whatever and give her any kind of trolling or bad treatment. I don't believe in that. I've been the victim myself of it, and basically don't go and troll the villain of my story because you don't know her story. I don't know why she did the things that she did, but that's just it. We don't know why. So I just really, really request that nobody starts being mean to somebody else, because I have been the victim of online trolling because of her article, and that massively affected my mental health, and I would never wish that upon anybody, okay? I'll start with what happened with the journalist before the article was printed. So the journalist, I can say her name because she was listed as the journalist that came. She wasn't some anonymous writer. So her name is Charlotte Wace. As much as I've said, not to troll her, and I firmly believe that, I do want to make it very clear that this person, she has never, ever apologised to me. And as far as I'm aware, she took no personal accountability for her actions and what it did to my life and my son's life. And I have really come to a place now where I really feel at peace. And although she's never apologised, like I've found it in my heart to forgive this person. Mainly, and people used to say you've got to forgive because it's good for you, and I never used to get it because I was so bitter and angry and upset and hurt and broken. I just couldn't understand how I was ever going to forgive this person. But I actually do, and I actually have really found peace in that. I finally get it. So, you know, when I'm telling you what's happened, that's not for anybody to give this girl shit, okay? Because I don't agree with that. And, you know, the trolling and the backlash of what her article did to my life, it did make me suicidal. And I attempted to take my life on more than one occasion. And had I done that, I will say there are people within that organisation that I believe would have had blood on their hands. And I think it's really important that journalists and editors and anyone looking to work in that industry, that you really, really like take on board that I'm not poo-pooing what you do. Exactly. I'm just hoping to inspire you to do a better job, because what happened to me nearly killed me. And the individuals that contributed to that would have had blood on their hands. And I really, truly believe that they wouldn't have been happy about that. I wouldn't be. If I did something and I didn't realise the bigger picture, what could happen by my personal actions, and somebody killed themselves, I don't think I'd be able to live with myself. That said, if I was in the journalist's shoes or the editor responsible for what happened to me, that said, I would have apologised. But that's me. So start to finish, Charlotte Wace, the journalist, came to my home posing as a client. She gave me a false name, a false identity, and she was posing as a client to have a treatment called plasma. And it was a skin tightening treatment that she wanted, or allegedly wanted, on her eyelids, because her skin here was a little bit loose, and she wanted that tightening. The second she came into my home, I don't know, I just had this gut feeling this person had a bad vibe about them. I didn't for 1 second think she was a journalist. Why would I? Why would a journalist come and pretend to be a client for me? But what I did know is that something about this woman's vibe, this girl's vibe, was not friendly. It was not a good vibe I was getting from this person. She was struggling to answer simple questions about where she was from, what she did for a living. She was stuttering. She was completely unfriendly. And all these things were just ringing alarm bells for me. I just knew something wasn't right. And sorry I keep playing with my hair. I've recently had hair extensions and I'm still getting used to like how they feel, so I can't stop touching it. The journalist, she came into my home and she had a hidden camera on her. And I lived by myself with my child, with my son. And essentially she got video footage of myself and my son in our home, in our safe place. I have seen most of the footage, although I do believe that some of it was missing, just because I know how long she was in my home and there was less footage than time she was here. But whether that's that there's footage missing or whether that's that some of it wasn't recorded, I don't know. What I do know is that my son was on the footage. You know, he was a child. This is 3 years ago, so he must have been 9 or 10 at the time. And at one point, because this journalist overstayed her welcome, she stayed past my hours of working. Obviously, she wasn't a real client, so she was just delaying and trying to find a story. So because of that, my son came downstairs in his boxer shorts after getting out the bath. So I don't know, I didn't see any footage of him in his underwear, but potentially there is footage, or there was footage of him in his underwear. That said, the footage that they did provide when I took things further, he was on the footage, but I didn't see any footage of him in his underwear. So, by the by, I'm sure if any parents, mothers, fathers are watching this, I'm sure you can appreciate that having somebody come in your home under a false identity with hidden cameras on yourself and your child/children, you'd have a little bit of a problem with that. I won't go too much into the article because I'm going to have to do a different video about that. But basically, while she was here, she was trying to trip me up. She told me that she was allergic to lidocaine, which is one of the main ingredients in numbing cream. And so I said, I'm not comfortable doing the treatment for you then because it's painful. I'm not comfortable with putting you through pain, and I'm not comfortable with putting something on you that you're allergic to. She actually tried a little entrapment tactic and told me, oh no, it'll be okay, just use the cream, I'm sure it'll be fine. At which point, naturally, as a professional and somebody with even an ounce of intelligence, I said, I'm not putting something on you that you're allergic to. Like, why would I do that? I'm allergic to nuts. I know if I eat nuts, potentially that could be fatal. I am not ever about to put something on somebody who has categorically told me that they're allergic to it. There were lots of little things like that happened in the conversation, where I think she was trying to find some sort of dirt that she could print about me, and as far as I'm aware, I didn't give it anything of value for this article, which she later put together, which was extremely misleading and without any evidence. There were lots of things that happened in this visit. I asked her where she'd come from. She told me she'd come from London. I'm in Leeds, 200-300 miles away from London. So I was like, you've come from London? And she sort of stuttered about some bullshit story about how she'd gone to university in Huddersfield, but she was from London, and her boyfriend that she met in Huddersfield was from Leeds, and now she lived in Leeds. And it was like a really long-winded, weird story. Now, when I say to my clients in general chit-chat, oh, where have you come from tonight? They'll say I've come from Morley or Pudsey or Crossgates, which are all like suburbs within Leeds. Leeds isn't as big as London, but it's big enough that somebody's not going to tell me I just came from Leeds. And yeah, basically, I said when she told me this cock and bull story, where have you come from tonight then? And she was like, oh, Leeds. And I was like, oh, whereabouts? She was like, just Leeds. And she was filling in her paperwork, like a client consultation paperwork. So I just sort of like made a joke, like, oh, you do know if I wanted to stalk you, I can just look at the address that you're about to put on your form. Because obviously she was being so suspiciously mysterious about what part of Leeds she came from. And she just didn't even react. Like, she just had like a really cold poker face. And I remember just thinking, you are not a client. I don't know who you are. I didn't think she was a journalist, but I just knew she was not a genuine client. And because I had a complaint recently from the client where this whole story originated from, with false claims, I was just thinking she must be a friend of this client who's made all these false allegations. I didn't for a second think she was a journalist, but after this visit, I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I didn't do the treatment, obviously. I sent her on her way. She was here way longer than she needed to be. Everything about that visit was off. I sent her on her way, and the next day I just couldn't stop thinking about it. So I tried Facebook in the name she gave me, Instagram, Twitter, and there was just no trace of this false identity. So I googled the address, no such address. So at which point I'm like, wow, who is this weird person that's been in my home where I live with my child? I was really, really worried. What the fuck? So I ended up Googling her phone number, and it came up straight away, Charlotte Wace, Daily Mail reporter or something like that. And the client who had made these false allegation complaints had already threatened to go to the paper. I'd brushed it off because I knew that I hadn't done anything wrong, and my response was something along the lines of, go to the paper then, they're not going to print bullshit. They don't print lies, because that's what I thought. Now, turns out the national newspapers of this country are just massively corrupt. They are not regulated or governed by any rules that are where they can be held accountable or punished for breaking rules, basically. And the regulator that we have for the press here is called IPSO, IPSO, and it stands for the Independent Press Standards Organisation. But they're not independent. They were set up, run and funded by the bigwigs of the national newspapers. So it's totally not independent. Now, I put a very complex complaint into them after the article was published. I actually put a complaint in before it got published, but they told me they can't do anything until after it's published, which is really shit. So basically the damage has to be done before you can do anything. I emailed the editor before the article was published, and he waited until the article was printed before he even replied to me. So I had no chance of limiting the damage that was going to be done. Now, in my complaint to IPSO, I will go over different parts of my complaint when I do more videos on this, but I'm going to try and stick to just the visit for today. So on their editor's code of conduct, I think it's called, it's like a set of rules that they have to adhere by. Some of the rules are things like they can infringe on your home life, your family life, and your personal privacy. This journalist came into my home under a false identity. She had hidden cameras on her person. She got video footage of myself and my child in my home. On paper, that to me is directly breaching their editor's code of whatever it is. That's doing exactly what they've been told not to do. And they ruled against me on that part of my complaint. They didn't think that there was any privacy breached. They didn't think my family life privacy was breached or my home life, because they said that they're allowed to do that if they can prove it's in the public interest. Now, bearing in mind, IPSO ruled against the paper for the accuracy of the article, and they were ordered to print a correction. Myself and anyone with half a brain surely would have to ask the question, well, how was it in the public's interest then? Because Danielle Hindley didn't do anything wrong. So what about that was in the public interest? But there we go. So first problem is the Independent Press Standards is funded, run and set up by the national newspapers, including the Mail, so they're not actually independent. Of course they're not independent. And second of all, a direct breach of one of their breakings of rules, not to invade somebody's home or family privacy. Somebody came into my home with a camera and filmed myself and my child in our home. The article which then came from that, which I don't believe anything much came from that visit that was even included in the article. So it was kind of a pointless visit, really. She may as well have just sat at home and wrote a little fictional story, because there was nothing incriminating that came from that visit. Yeah, they ruled against me. Now, they didn't rule against me in terms of the accuracy. I'll go over the article itself in another video. But if you're a parent, a mother or a father, and you're watching this, and how would you feel if a journalist came into your home with a hidden camera and has video footage of your son? Now, I need to say, my son came downstairs at one point because he thought all my clients had gone because she overstayed her welcome that long. She stayed here for 1 hour and 45 minutes, although she claimed she was only here for 45 minutes. I've proved otherwise, but again, IPSO didn't care about that or do anything about that. My son came downstairs in his underwear. He'd got his evening bath and he came down in his underwear and realised there was a client still here and obviously went back up. Now, I've seen the footage that they provided. I don't know if there's any other footage, but there's not an hour and a half, and there's not an hour and 45 minutes worth of footage that was provided to me. And I haven't seen any footage of him in his underwear, but there is time missing from the footage that I've seen. And whether he's on that footage in his underwear or not, he is on the footage. They do have video footage of my child in his home. Under a false identity, you've gained access to my home with my child. Surely no parent is listening to this and thinks that that's right and thinks that there's no law protecting me against that. That could happen to anyone. I am not a celebrity, and they have come into my home and done that. So this could happen to anybody, and it does happen to people. The newspapers have victimised normal people, and I believe they do it every single day, but it's not an easy battle. It's almost impossible to do anything against these newspapers because they are not regulated properly. Now, there is an organisation called Hacked Off who campaign for better regulation for the press. But it took me about 8 or 9 months to even find out who Hacked Off are. And they've got celebrities working with them, people like Hugh Grant, and still they don't have the awareness that I believe they should have, because they are fighting for something that matters. You know, these newspapers, they can print lies and they don't have to print it accurate, because even if they print something that's not true, for a normal person like me to do anything about it is almost impossible. And that's wrong, and it's because the law isn't right. The regulation, how it's set up right now, is flawed. Now, Hacked Off are obviously campaigning to try and get this rectified. Now, for this, they need awareness and they need funds. So I am going to put a link on here where I'm trying to do some fundraising for Hacked Off. And obviously I'll put their website on there if anyone wants to have a look at what they do and things that they've got going on and things. But I'm going to do more videos about how this has affected mine and my son's life. And this tiny little part of my story, you know, this video is a very tiny part of my story. I was left suicidal because of what that newspaper did. And it's not right. This is the second video I've recorded of this same thing because I got too upset in my last one. Something needs to be done. A newspaper, no matter how big of an organisation, does not have the right to come into a normal family home and invade the privacy of not just myself, my child, for a story that turned out to be lies anyway. How is that fair? I have since sued the newspaper. I have been paid out. I have got my story out there. It's been on the news and things. But this is just me sharing my own personal experience of each part, every little part of what's actually happened. So, you know, if you do relate to what I'm saying and you do agree with what I'm saying, that shouldn't have happened, then please share this video or donate something to the cause for Hacked Off, because the system is flawed for the press right now. They're allowed to get away with what they're getting away with, and you read these stories and you think they're true. You believe they're true because they must be true, because newspapers can't print lies, right? Well, I'm living proof that they can. And unfortunately, there will be a lot of stories of this that you will never get to hear. You may never have got to hear my story because I was left suicidal. If I had succeeded in one of my attempts to take my own life because of that newspaper, you would never have got to hear the story. And you've got to ask the question, is there other people where you never got to hear the story? Newspapers are no longer yesterday's chip paper. I mean, as if it ever even was chip paper. But these stories are on the internet forever. Now, the article about me, it's been taken down. But there are a lot of stories. People have come to me when they've seen my story. They've come to me and said, how do you get that story taken off? Because I had something wrote about me and it wasn't true and it's ruining my life and and I can't get a job because of it and whatever it may be. And they can't do anything about it because the system is flawed. This is just the first of many videos that I'm going to do to help raise awareness of this situation. So if you can please share this video, comment on this video, and go to the links and make a donation, or just have a look at it and just educate yourself a little bit on how corrupt our national press is. It is messed up. I have learned so much over these last 3 years, and although I've been paid out and I've found peace and I've found forgiveness, I can't just let this happen to other people without trying to raise some awareness. The journalist, Charlotte Wace, and the editor, John Wellington, I genuinely wish you no harm, and despite neither of you ever personally apologising to me, I do forgive you. I don't think I understand how or why you did what you did, but I just think it's kind of messed up that a national newspaper and the people that work for it can hide behind this name. If I worked in a nursery and I neglected a child, the nursery would be in trouble and I would have to take some personal accountability. And because of the way that this industry is governed and regulated, these people, it was their personal actions that almost ended my life, and they have no personal accountability. And it's not that I want them to get trolled or I'm trying to personally attack them with this, because the last thing I would ever wish on anybody is to go through even a small amount of what I went through because of their actions. But something needs to change with the way the law is set up and the way the press are regulated. Something needs to change, because they are printing lies and ruining lives every single day with no accountability.